Hello and welcome back to my channel. However, if you're new here, my name is Dawn and it is lovely to have you here. So today's video, I'm going to be looking at borrowing. My last video, I looked at savings and it was the introduction to savings. So this is going to be an introduction to borrowing. I have got a few notes that I will be looking at on the side, so do bear that in mind. But I really hope that you will enjoy this video and you will find this all informative. So the first borrowing facility that we'll be talking about is overdrafts. So overdrafts are a borrowing facility that your bank will include in your account. So that's meant to be for short-term borrowing, and the interest rate tends to be slightly higher, but it is meant to be for short-term use anyways. So longer term, you shouldn't be paying that much for that facility, and it depends how much your bank and you decide that you need. But it is meant to be just for those emergency uses. It shouldn't be something that you're using long term, and the bank has a right to close that facility at any point and require you to pay the money that you owe if you are overdrawn. So that's the first facility. The second one is a credit card. So credit cards are actually great and useful for when you make like purchases. For example, if you want to travel abroad and you decide to pay with your credit card, it offers you some security. So if the company goes bankrupt or it's very difficult for you to get the money back, you can claim it via the credit card company and they will actually reimburse you, and they will trace up the issue with the people that you've purchased whatever from, and they will sort it out for you. So it's got that insurance, that added insurance and protection, which is great, especially for holidays. It doesn't mean that you can purchase a holiday and decide you don't want to go anymore and just claim it. So no, but it's that insurance that is there for the consumer. So it's perfect for booking holidays or for buying things. Like if you buy something and it never turns up and you don't receive your goods, but the company refuses to pay you back your money or acknowledge anything, then you can go via the credit card. So it's great for that. The interest for credit cards tends to be high, but for credit cards as well, I would say it's for short-term borrowing, especially if you don't want to end up paying a huge amount of money for the interest. So that's for the cost of borrowing. So another borrowing facility is personal loans. So personal loans are for medium to long term borrowing needs, and you borrow because you've got something that you need. You don't just go for a personal loan just because you feel like going for a personal loan. Whereas for credit cards and overdrafts, you can just do it just because you want that facility available when you need it. But for personal loan, you go for a personal loan because you need it. You already know what you want to do with it and you borrow. And personal loans, depending on where you go and your relationship, your credit score and different things, they tend to be less interest. So you get a lower interest rate, not necessarily less interest, because less interest is a bit funny, but you tend to get a lower interest rate with personal loans. So it is good for that medium to long term borrowing. What you need to remember with a personal loan when you're taking it out is finding out if you can pay early, if you can close your personal loan early, if you somehow get the money that you need, you've borrowed from them, if there's any charges for that, if they facilitate that. Find out if you can pay extra every month. Make sure that that's facilitated, because if you pay extra every month, it means that you are overall going to be paying less interest, because the interest is calculated for the duration of the loan. So of course, if you're paying extra every month, it means that you'll finish your loan earlier, so the interest that you overall pay would be lower. So think about that and talk to them before you actually take the personal loan, especially if you are someone who wants to reduce the cost of borrowing, which I always want to do. So think about that. Another thing is car finance. So if car finance is for when you want to purchase a car. So you go to a retailer, and the retailer sometimes will do a search for you, and they will tell you which companies are willing to give you car finance, and then you take it. Car finance sometimes does give ridiculously high interest rates. So I would say compare. Maybe ask your bank to do a quote for you that will not affect your credit score, and find out how much they'd be willing to borrow you, and then the duration of the loan. And then when you go to the dealership and you ask for car finance from them, you've already got some idea of how much you'd get from your bank, so that if they give you a quotation that is just too high, the cost of borrowing is too high for you, you can go to your bank and get the loan, and you can still get your flashy new car without borrowing from a lender which is just offering you interest that is just too high. So the interest rate is too high. So another thing is store cards. So store cards, sometimes the interest is quite high, and sometimes they give you buy now, pay later, which is you purchase now and they'll give you 6 to 12 months to pay for the goods, which I think is great, because if you pay for the goods before that time frame, then the interest rate is 0, so you do not pay any interest, you just pay for what you've borrowed. However, if you do not, they calculate the interest from the day when you purchase that item, so you pay back so much more than you've ever thought you'd be paying for. So bear that in mind. If you take a store card and it's got a buy now, pay later, make sure that you pay by that date so that you don't end up paying any interest, because the interest can be quite high. Some people believe that the interest will be calculated from the date they've like the date that they were meant to pay and the date that they actually pay. However, it's actually calculated from the date when you actually borrowed, when you actually took out whatever you've bought with the buy now, pay later. So look at this, and I think it's a great way to borrow if you really want something now, but you don't have the money now and you need it. So I always feel like for any sort of borrowing, you just can't just borrow just because you just want to borrow. You need something, and they've given you this facility, and you know that you'll be able to pay before that date that they've specified. Then I think it's a good way to borrow. And I've used it in the past when I needed a new washing machine, just like it broke down. I needed a new one ASAP, so I just got one, and then I paid the money before that date. So the cost of borrowing was 0, but it meant that I got my item before payday, so it was great. So I think you need to just make sure that you use it in the right way, because it can be an expensive form of borrowing. What else? Okay, so right now, because of COVID, there are repayment holidays. So a lot of people have been taking repayment holidays, and I understand why people would take repayment holidays. But before you do take a repayment holiday, make sure that you're fully aware of what this actually means for you, because sometimes it might mean that you'll actually be paying a higher interest, because it will mean that the loan, like when you'd finish the loan, or when you finish the loan or whatever that you've got a repayment holiday for, once you finished it, once you are meant to finish it, it won't be finished, because of course you've taken a holiday, so that time will be extended. Excuse me. With this extension, it could mean that you'll be paying more interest. So if you're someone like me who's very much aware of the cost of borrowing and who wants to reduce the cost of borrowing as much as possible, because why do I want to pay a lender money for me to borrow instead of me saving my money so that I can use it for something else? I don't see the point. So I would like to reduce the cost of borrowing as much as possible. So bear that in mind. And then, okay, the last thing that I'm going to cover is savings and lending or borrowing. So there's so many different scenarios, but some people that have got savings would still rather pay their normal amounts for their borrowing, because they don't want to take their savings and just put it all in what they owe and start afresh, because they feel like, I don't know, they just don't want to do that. For me personally, I would look at the cost of borrowing and the interest rates that I'm actually receiving. So the cost or the benefits of saving my savings, the interest rates that I'm getting from my savings, to the interest that I'm paying for what I've borrowed. And like normally it costs you less. No, normally you get paid less for your savings than what you are paying for your lending. So for me, I would if I had savings, if I had a lump sum of savings and I had that same amount of borrowing, I probably take half of savings. The money here is saved. The money here I've got a loan. I would take at least half of how much I've got saved and put it into the loan to just reduce the amount that I've got that I owe, and then reduce the interest rates that I'll pay, because I'm not going to be making that much money from that money just sitting in my savings account. However, I can fully appreciate that some people feel like they'd rather start with something. So if they take that money and they put it into their loan, it means that they've got a decreased amount of savings, and starting afresh can sometimes be daunting for some people. And some people might just not want to do that. Some people, we're all different. But just think about that. Something to bear in mind is the cost of borrowing much more greater than the return in savings. And decide if that's okay with you. You're okay with losing money here, but you've got money here that you're hardly getting any return for. But yeah, that is all for me today. I really hope you found this informative, and please do ask me questions. Everything that I've shared is from personal experience and what I do in terms of my finances as well. So it is not any professional advice. If you do need professional advice, please seek professional advice from an authorized financial advisor. And I really hope you will join me again for Finance with Dawn. Thank you for watching. Bye.